Oh, that's good. Everything will be recorded.
Yes.
Now
Great,
it's recording. Take care what you're saying.
great.
Welcome to the first IDEA webinar in 2021. We are very happy to have you here. One of the biggest challenges that we have encountered as a world organization is how to find the right time, a time that is comfortable for everyone. And just because of that reason, that sometimes it is really hard to have a good time for everybody, we decided to divide these webinars into a series of webinars that are covering different regions. Joachim will say a little bit more, and I will also mention more about this. But what is important is that it is hard to think about what to say. Shall we say good morning, good evening, good afternoon? We are all in different parts of the world. In my language, we say dobro jutro for good morning because it is morning in Belgrade and really a nice sunny winter morning, quite cold also. And I'm really happy that our speakers are here and the attendees. I hope you will have a really, really profound and a good time getting some reflections and understanding about the advocacies and what is happening in the world, especially in the regions of Oceania and of Asia. I want to say that it's very important to remind ourselves in the Constitution of IDEA, what does it say about its aims? So the aims of IDEA will be to provide an international forum for communicating about, promoting and advocating for drama theater education in schools, communities, and all fields of endeavor, and to support development of drama theater practice and theory as part of a full human education. I think this is actually one of the main motivations for creating such a platform. And this strange COVID situation that we are facing also allows us now to use much more this internet and digital possibilities. I would like to also quote, and it is actually a sub-quote of something that Joachim Reiss already has found, and it is the voice of actually Audrey Azoulay, who is the Director General of UNESCO, who on the occasion of the International Arts Education Week last May said this: creativity builds the resilience we need in times of crisis. It has to be nurtured from the earliest age to unlock the imagination, awaken curiosity, and develop appreciation for the richness of human talent and diversity. Education is the place where it starts. He also says, if given greater priority within education systems, art education can be a formidable resource to open minds to the diversity of the world's cultural expressions by creating generations of learners with knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes that are needed to build stronger, more sustainable, and peaceful societies. But what I can say, these are really words, nice words. But what about actions? What is really happening and what are we doing to influence policymakers, to influence our governments, ministries of education, ministries of culture? This is why we are all collected here to listen to the voices from different parts of the world and to find out about good practices, also find out about things that failed, because it's very important to learn from our mistakes or something that did not go wrong to perfect ourselves and be better in the next steps. I want to just say a couple of things about this webinar, how we are going to actually conduct it. So it's okay if you have your camera off, but at the part of the question and answer session, it would be really good that all of you have your cameras on as well. Please keep your microphone off during the whole event, except if you're the speaker. You will have the possibility to write in the chat questions for the speakers in any time during the webinar. You can address the questions directly to some particular speaker, like question 4, and write the name. You don't have to write the full name, but just write maybe the personal name of the person. And then you should actually write the question. After the speakers have done their presentations, we will have these questions read out and the speakers will answer. I think this will be it. So I will ask now Joachim Reiss, who's actually this whole series of webinars and this idea to create these sessions, it came from his motivation and really many years of work on advocacy concerning drama theater education.
Yeah. Welcome. Hello. Joachim from Frankfurt. Guten Morgen. Yeah, well, what I say now, it's not new to you. And I'm short, of course, 5 minutes. So what I have to say is we as drama teachers and theater educators know best why we are fighting. We ourselves know best why we are fighting many decades for our core aims. Sanja just quoted, give everybody access to arts education. Every child or student in every region, every school, cultural institution should have the chance and real opportunity to take part in theater projects of all kinds regarding quality standards of arts education. We know this because we have experienced ourselves their extraordinary effects and impacts on personal development regarding others and oneself, on social and creative competences, self-presentation and self-confidence, motivation for climbing big hills together successfully, and getting closer to arts, artistic methods and knowledge of theater forms, history and place. Art education and especially drama projects are totally valuable for every individual as a social being. We know this in many schools, theaters, communities, universities, associations, and even in ministries. We as experts and part of civil society are fighting for our aim on local, regional, and national levels. On an international level, there is one global organization for culture and education, the UNESCO. As an international active association, IDEA is working eye in eye with UNESCO because we may help our members to justify and give reasons for theater in educational systems, but we cannot address national governments directly from the international level. We have been successfully addressing UNESCO not only in Lisbon 2006 and in Seoul 2010, but the best outcome of these big international conferences was the Seoul Agenda. I quote, Seoul Agenda, conference participants agreed that arts education can make a direct contribution to resolving the social and cultural challenges facing the world today, not limited to peace, cultural diversity, and intercultural understanding. The Seoul Agenda calls upon UNESCO member states, civil society, professional organizations, and communities to recognize its governing goals, to employ the proposed strategies, and to implement the action items in a concerted effort to realize the full potential of high-quality arts education to positively renew educational systems, to achieve crucial social and cultural objectives, and ultimately to benefit children, youth, and lifelong learners of all ages. Every country should enact policies and deploy resources to ensure sustainable access to comprehensive studies in all fields for students at all levels of schooling as part of a broad and holistic education. Ensure learners from all social backgrounds have lifelong access to arts education in a wide range of community and institutional settings. aims and standards for such systems, as we all know, are given in Sustainable Development Goal number 4, and that's not at all totally new, no, but nevertheless, we are 2020, and it's not everywhere true. The Frankfurt International WAE Conference 2019 found in nearly all reports from countries all over the world that there were many good and many bad developments since 2010 regarding Seoul Agenda standards. But most countries do still not at all achieve these standards. And since 2010, there were nice words from UNESCO and education and cultural ministers worldwide, but only very few real steps forward. Therefore, our idea webinars, Where Do We Stand, are another try to push forward theater education for everybody in the reality of educational and cultural systems. Let's remind together all states and education ministries of SDG 4 and others and Seoul Agenda they agreed to. Accessible quality arts education for all needs first our local advocacy as civil society collaborating. Second, reports from all UNESCO members in order to remind them of their responsibility for achieving the Seoul Agenda standards for their people. Third, challenge all states and education ministers to make all efforts needed for these standards agreed on in the Seoul Agenda. UNESCO cannot tell member states what to do in their education policies, but UNESCO can start a worldwide evaluation of Seoul Agenda, and this will hopefully show achievements and challenges and might become a good base for another UNESCO World Conference on Art Education. Your reports and your statements today, dear speakers and dear participants, today are giving us a solid ground for future efforts and successes. Thank you for being here and welcome.
Thank you, Joachim. Really important words and concepts. I want just to remind you that you can put the view into speaker view if you like while the speakers are speaking. They will also share their screens because many of them have PowerPoints and different visual material. So for the beginning, I would really like to welcome Emma Bishop, President of Drama New Zealand, affiliated with Music Theatre New Zealand, Junior Theatre New Zealand, National Arts in Education Alliance Association. Emma is a freelance arts practitioner with 20 years classroom experience. Emma has been the president of Drama New Zealand for 7 years and a part of the association for 13. Emma sits on a number of national arts associations, and she is currently working for the University of Auckland, researching the history of drama in Aotearoa. Emma has presented at conferences both nationally and internationally, including IDEA Paris. Welcome, Emma. It has been my great pleasure to be part of a project that involved a theater from New Zealand, and I have traveled to your beautiful, beautiful country. I see also we are sisters in a way that we have the same little color of the hair. So it's a connection, new connection, Serbia, New Zealand. Please start with your presentation.
Okay, first of all, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, fantastic. So, kia ora, Emma Bishop aho. As you've heard, I'm the president of Drama New Zealand. My voice is a little bit croaky today as I've just come off 2 weeks of teaching students around New Zealand in Christchurch and Wellington. We did 3 pilot programs of Broadway musicals where we put on 3 musicals. They had a week to learn it, 5 days of training, and then they performed on the Friday night. So I'm very croaky because our last performance was last night. So hopefully you can still understand everything I'm saying. So here we go. So we in Aotearoa New Zealand have a national arts curriculum. It comprises of the 4 art forms, drama, dance, music, and visual arts, which are mandated as compulsory in years 1 to 10. However, systemically, not all schools implement the curriculum. Music and art remain to be the go-to of the 4 disciplines, with dance and drama continuing to be seen as requiring specialist teachers, not mainstream general teachers. And whilst there's many reasons why this is happening, main reasons are due to the fact that the government's focus, of course, is on literacy and numeracy. And as we all know, if I insert my tongue in my cheek, drama's nothing to do with literacy, of course. Drama's all about playing. So it's also not helped by the inadequacies of New Zealand's pre-service training, which sees teachers training only receiving 14 hours of contact teaching time to learn how to teach all 4 art subjects. And as we all know, it takes a lot more than 14 hours to learn how to, for example, teach music. For students in years 9 to 13 in secondary education, drama remains to be viewed as a specialist subject, only something to go and play in rather than as a pedagogical mode. The subject is often referred to as soft, and it teaches soft skills, including problem solving, communication, thinking, and independence, which I actually believe aren't soft skills. They're skills that are required to actually be a 21st century citizen. In 2017, the Ministry of Education implemented a professional learning and development program entitled Networks of Expertise across all curriculum areas. Drama New Zealand were successful with our bid for a portion of the funding pie. This program seeks to support and develop peer-to-peer networks for teachers in New Zealand. The funding we received allowed us to pilot over 3 years, phase 1 of a new primary teachers initiative to build capacity and expertise using drama as a means to enhance literacy. With a program of 8 weeks in-class mentoring across, and this went out to 11 English medium schools in the Hawke's Bay and Wellington, as well as 2 Kura Kaupapa Māori medium schools in Wellington. This pilot is currently in planning for phase 2 in 2021, and we're currently waiting to hear if we were successful in our funding bid for the next 3 years from the government. The funding also saw a number of other projects, including a resourcing project, which allowed us to pay practitioners to create units of work for all levels, to create classroom signage and resources, subject-specific resources, and guidelines which could be implemented. A large chunk of money went into a set of guidelines which specifically targeted sole charge teachers and to help them build their departments within their own schools. It also created the establishment of the Health and Wellbeing for Arts Educators Group, which has seen the creation of resources for both students and teachers, as well as research and the creation of a publication specifically on wellbeing for teachers in drama, which is due out in February. We awarded 5 scholarships to teachers to undertake research into drama in education to help us with our development as an association. And then during the 2020 New Zealand lockdown in March, we rolled out a project called Reaching the Edges. Reaching the Edges was 30 online workshops for teachers, which offered a variety of topics, including taking drama online, keeping drama physical through times of COVID, and then onto specific theatre forms, and also workshops including Meet the Makers, where we were able to interview and have panels with arts specialists within the New Zealand community. These were attended by over 370 teachers in New Zealand and showed us that online workshops could actually solve an issue that we've had for a long time in our association, which is how do we reach the many teachers who work remotely in regional locations? We've also used some of our next funding money, so our Network of Expertise funding money, to run a series of hui with key stakeholders, such as the other arts subjects associations. We found that our time together with dance, drama, music, and visual arts showed us a number of concerns that were joined by all of us. We also met with theatre practitioners and companies to talk about how we could further develop our networks. These huis acknowledged, so hui is the name in New Zealand or in Maori for meeting, so hui, H-U-I, acknowledged a number of gaps which are currently being worked on. One of the major gaps in New Zealand in drama education is the online careers program provided by Careers New Zealand. This program is taken by most students before they enter senior secondary. In that program, students input what they like doing, what they would like to be in the future, and it gives guidelines on what subjects in our national education curriculum framework should be taken in senior years. Unfortunately, none of the vocational pathways include drama. So students that are being told that maybe being a lawyer is a possible pathway are being told to take sciences, not to take drama. This particular program has seen many schools in New Zealand with a 50 to 65% drop in numbers of students who take drama in years 9 and 10 to those who take it as a curriculum pathway and an achievement standards in senior years. So the advocacy for our subject in education is really clear. At the beginning of 2020, with the help of Professor Peter O'Connor, we had a meeting which saw the foundations for the start of New Zealand's NAEAA, the National Arts and Education Alliance Association. This, I've lost my notes, where are we? This brought together representatives from the 4 arts subjects, as well as representatives from Ngā Toi. And Ngā Toi is the Māori arts curriculum. With a focus to bring us together to focus on advocacy. Our work on this to date has actually focused on our co-governance model, which sees a bicultural governance model with co-chairs for tangata whenua and Pākehā. Our next steps are to form and consolidate our governance model. And we believe that this alliance is extremely important, as currently in New Zealand, advocacy for the arts is in need. Drama New Zealand are also currently in the middle of our own advocacy project, which sees us interviewing a number of professionals on how drama has helped them outside of drama itself. So for example, we're interviewing lawyers, judges, bankers on how drama has actually helped them in their career pathway. This advocacy project sees us creating a documentary of interviews, which will be sent to Careers New Zealand and careers and guidance counsellors to hopefully encourage teachers outside of drama itself to realise the importance of drama as a subject. We are extremely lucky in New Zealand to have amazing experts with strong standings both nationally and internationally. One of these, of course, is Professor Peter O'Connor, who has in the last few years continued to do amazing work on the advocacy of drama through his models and outputs in response to crisis around the world. Crises including the 2011 Canterbury earthquakes, which he then took that project to Mexico in 2017 after their earthquakes. In 2019, after the Christchurch terrorist attacks. And then in 2020, when he joined with many Australians as well after the bushfires. Then in March 2020, of course, he rolled out Terito Toi. Terito Toi was an online arts advocacy project. These projects all put the child at the centre through rich arts-based resources to help our children transition back into school after crisis, navigating the issues and concerns that would naturally be inherent in the classroom. Terito Toi in March was accessed by over 37,000 teachers and had over 250,000 views. Drama New Zealand were proud to be partners of this project. So we're proud of how we are walking forward in advocacy for drama. We acknowledge that we have a long way to go and a lot of steps to take, but we are getting there. And that's the end of my presentation. I think it was a little bit shorter than 15 minutes, but mā te wā, and thank you.
Thank you, Emma. It was actually very, very good timing and an amazing inspirational presentation. I think we can take a lot from what you have just said. One of the things that really inspired me, what you said about making the documentary about the impact on drama education on people who chose a different line of profession. Because people often think that, okay, you are educated in arts, so because you want to become an artist. No, you should be educated in arts because you will become a better human being, a more creative human being in whatever you choose to do in your life. Thank you so much. I would now like to invite our next speaker, and now from a country that is close to New Zealand, a beautiful continent, Australia, that I have visited also a couple of times. And one of my biggest and most important experiences was working in the 90s with Stalker's Stilt Theater. I don't know if you know John Nicholas Saunders about this group, but they are stilt walking, and they had a great influence here in Belgrade because they came to BITEF, and these people from Australia were learning young artists to walk on stilts. So this is amazing possibilities to meet and to interact and to learn from each other. And I really hope that the world will become a more safer place and that we will have more of these intercontinental travels and exchanges just for the benefit of all. So I would like to just present Dr. John Nicholas Saunders, who is the president of Drama Australia, that is also as Drama New Zealand a member of IDEA. He is the chair of the National Advocates for Arts Education. I think this is a very, very important position, especially for our webinar. And he is the director of education and community partnerships at Sydney Theatre Company, Australia. He has an extensive experience in arts education and has been a teacher and head of department in schools. He has worked in primary, secondary, tertiary, and community learning contexts. He has worked in a curriculum writer and reviewer in Australia and is a honorary associate at the University of Sydney, where he has recently completed his PhD exploring the impact of drama-based pedagogy on English and literacy learning. So congratulations for accomplishing your PhD. So John, can you please start?
Thank you so much. Thank you. Can you see my screen? I'm just having some issues with that.
Yes. Yes,
the
we can.
PowerPoint. Terrific. Great. Thank you. Thank you for that warm introduction and for the opportunity to participate in this this really interesting conversation of mapping our politics, policies, and drama education and how they intersect together. I've set a timer for myself, so hopefully I stay below 15 minutes for us. And I would just acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I meet. I'm with you today, which is the Turrbal and Jagera peoples, and I pay my deep respects to elders past, present and emerging. And I think it's important to remember that Australia's Indigenous people are the longest, oldest continuing culture in the world, and that we have so much to learn from our Aboriginal brothers and sisters when it comes to education, because for tens of thousands of years on this land, so much was taught through the arts, through singing songs and telling stories and acting them out, through making music, through painting and through all of the arts. And I pay my deep respects to our First Nations brothers and sisters. So I thought I'd start by giving you a snapshot of Australia and Drama Australia. So Australia is made up of 8 states and territories, and these states and territories existed before Australia was federated, which is an interesting educational model because it means that each state and territory has the responsibility for education. So even though we have a fairly small population, we have 8 different education systems. Within each state and territory, we also have a different drama association. So in Queensland, I'm in Brisbane at the moment, where the second Idea World Congress was held in 1995. Drama Queensland is our state association here, Drama New South Wales, etc., as we go around. So all of those associations are members of Drama Australia. So we're an association of associations. And some of those associations are very big in size and some of them are very small in size. But we all work very well together and have a very a strong shared goal and a shared understanding of drama education. And really, we've been lucky in Australia that we've been, I think, influenced in our practice and curriculum by UK practitioners like Peter Slade, Brian Way, Dorothy Heathcote, Gavin Bolton, Cecily O'Neill, and Jonathan Nealons. And also in Australia, some great minds, John O'Toole, Brad Haseman, John Carroll, Judith McLean, Robin Ewing, and many, many others. And we've been able to avoid, I suppose, some of the clashes that perhaps other countries have had. The big debates about process or product haven't really occurred in Australia. We've been able to quite comfortably marry product and process together and find a good balance that's kept us all fairly happy. So far, so good. Anyway, touch wood. As Sanja said, I'm also the chair of the National Advocates for Arts Education, formerly known as the National Alliance of Arts Education. And Robin Pascoe was a former chair of this group as well. And it's very similar in structure to the World Alliance for Arts Education. But this is a national group in Australia where the 5 art subjects in Australia are represented. So we have Art Education Australia representing visual arts, as well as the National Association for Visual Arts, the Australian Teachers of Media. Media arts is one of our 5 art forms here. Drama Australia, Ausdance representing dance education, the Australian Society for Music Education, ASME, representing music, as well as Music Australia. So there are a range of associations there. The NAAE is a network of nationally focused associations and peak bodies. So some of the members only focus on teacher professional associations, and others work with both teachers and education and also with industry. So Ausdance, NAVA, and Music Australia represent both industry and education. And we advocate to government for arts education policy and curriculum on behalf of all of our members across Australia. We were formed in about 1989 when the associations came together under a key kind of moment in education in Australia. We represent about 10,000 arts educators, and we're governed by a memorandum of understanding between the associations. And again, there are no individual members, no one person is a member, we're all member associations. The objectives are to collaborate, represent and advocate for arts education, to build networks, alliances and partnerships for arts education, and to enhance communication about arts education. And through the National Advocates for Arts Education, we're also connected to the World Alliance for Arts Education, which of course IDEA is an important member of. Our recent work, so I find this quite difficult. Our work is, I find, very reactionary because it depends on the government of the day. We work with whoever is in power, whether they're a progressive or a conservative government, or left or right of the aisle. And we have worked hard to not align ourselves to a political party. We are independent of that. Unfortunately, as it happens, we've been really in a battle to show value of the arts, and it feels like the arts have been almost constantly under threat during my teaching career over the past 10 or 15 years. Robin Pascoe might say that it's been a lot longer than that. But certainly our recent work has focused on the Senate submissions for job-ready graduates at universities, the review of the Melbourne Declaration. So in Australia, every 10 years, there's a declaration looking at the educational goals for the country that every education minister signs up to. And we've made submissions to ensure that the arts play a key role in those documents. We had a review a couple of years ago to achieve educational excellence for Australian students. Again, making a research-informed submission. We also looked at state curriculum, the federal inquiry into innovation and creativity, workforce for the new economy, which very sadly didn't mention the arts at all in innovation and creativity. It was very science-focused. And we also make submissions into ensuring that the arts are included in the early years learning framework. Some of the campaigns that we've been working on are the closure of several arts schools within Australian universities. So we've seen drama departments, visual art departments, and other arts departments collapse and be shut down within Australian universities over the last year. We've seen the federal government's try successfully to increase university fees for student loans in the humanities and arts courses because they're not producing, quote, job-ready graduates. The National Advocates have also called for artists in every school in Australia. We've also campaigned against reduced funding for the youth arts sector. So we've seen recently a whole range of incredible youth arts companies that tour into schools across our very large country stop receiving government funding. And we've also been part of initiatives like the Banksia initiative, which supported educators across Australia after the bushfires about this time last year in Australia to help use the arts as a way of healing and moving forward. So where do we stand in Australia? Well, as I mentioned, education falls under the state and territory jurisdictions, which makes it difficult. About 10 or 15 years ago, we had a federal government that were progressive and were trying to federalise education. And that really started the conversation about a national curriculum again in Australia. over about 15 years, there have been 2 reviews that have been federally funded looking at the arts in Australian schools, one focusing on music education and the other focusing on visual arts education. And both found that really the links to arts education were strongly linked, the provision rather of arts education was strongly linked to socioeconomic advantage. So wealthy areas, wealthy schools had quality arts experiences for their students, and poorer areas, poorer schools were missing out. In 1994, Australia had a first attempt at a national curriculum, and this curriculum was written. The NAAE were very involved in advocating and ensuring the arts were one of the learning areas, and that all 5 art subjects were included. So that was written, but before it was implemented, there was a change of governments, which meant that it didn't get implemented. Then in about 2008, 2009, we successfully lobbied for the arts in all 5 art forms, dance, drama, media arts, music and visual art, to be included in the Australian curriculum, which was published and endorsed in 2013. In the current sort of educational landscape, we see a narrowing of the curriculum and a real focus on literacy and numeracy, not a holistic focus, but a very narrow focus and a narrow definition. We see constantly the devaluing of the arts in schools and society. We see reductive, narrow and selective data being used in schools. Almost constantly, every year, there seems to be a federal review of teacher quality, because teachers apparently are doing such a terrible job. We see cuts to the arts, cuts to pre-service teacher education. We see a strong focus on the science, technology, engineering and maths area, STEM. And we're also seeing decreased numbers now in students selecting to study drama as an elective in secondary schools in Australia, particularly over the last 2 or 3 years. This is despite having a central entitlement to arts education. So in our national curriculum, it says that all young Australians are entitled to engage with the 5 arts subjects. So this has been included, but as Anne Bamford suggested in the wow factor, there is a gulf between educational policy and the lip service that's given to the arts and what's actually being delivered in Australian schools. In the curriculum, we have those 5 distinct subjects. It's from foundation or prep or kindergarten, so about 4-year-olds to year 10, and there are 2 strands of making and responding. In year 11 and 12, which is our senior secondary in Australia, states and territories have their own curriculum. Almost every state offers those 5 subjects. Some of them offer more in extension programs. Our current educational goals come from the Alice Springs Declaration, and we've continued to focus on Goal 2. There are only 2 goals, and this is Goal 2, that all young Australians become confident and creative individuals, successful lifelong learners, and active and informed members of our community. So we use our policy documents to help reinforce our advocacy at a national level. This is what our government, all of our education ministers have signed off on. So we use this and keep coming back to it and try to hold them accountable. In Australia, only 5 states have adopted the Australian curriculum, the arts. 3 states haven't, or they've adapted it for their own contexts. The Australian curriculum now is being reviewed this year, and I've just highlighted here that there is a particular focus of the overcrowdedness or the clutteredness of the curriculum, and that there needs to be a reduction in the amount of curriculum that's being covered so that deep understanding of core concepts can be focused on. Of course, whenever overcrowded is used in a sentence, we're always very worried that that means reductions in the arts. So that will be a big focus this year in Australia. However, what is actually happening in Australian schools? Well, we don't really know, because there isn't data that tells us what subjects are actually being taught, who is teaching them, how long they're being offered for, etc. And we've called for a national review into Australian education and the arts in Australian schools. I know my time's running out here, so we've asked for this review, which has just been rejected. We've asked for a snapshot of research into the last 10 years into arts curricula in schools, focusing particularly on delivery and resource models. We'd like to map the current curriculum offerings, the intended curriculum. We'd like to look at the enacted curriculum. So what is actually happening across those 5 subject areas in every state and territory. We'd also like to map the initial teacher education or pre-service teacher education programs, what's being offered at universities, how long, how much time is being allocated to the arts in pre-service teacher education. And we're asking for a range of recommendations to help improve the arts in Australian schools. I'll leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, John. Really interesting and important to note some things. I really like what you said, that we should be, as people who are doing advocacy for art education, not be in connection to any specific party or government, because they just keep changing. I think it's in every country that we have to negotiate. We have to find a channel how to approach whoever is on power, because our mission is really stronger than any thing that we choose to be inclined to this or that political party. I think this is a very, very important point. And also, I'm really thinking of what you said about the STEM subjects. Here in Serbia, for example, when the COVID situation started, the Ministry of Education said we have to focus on the important subjects. These should be taught online. And of course, important subjects for them were mathematics, literacy, and so on, and not art. So art was really very, very strongly excluded from, from the online learning. Thank you so much. It has been really interesting, inspirational, and I wish you all the best with your organizations. I think this is a very good way to form organizations, especially for advocacy. You know, I think this is also an inspiring thing that you have one in your country.
Oh, Sanja, you've just muted yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, yes. Thank you, John. So now what we're doing, we are traveling from Australia to Asia, to a beautiful, huge, diverse continent. And we have coming from Mumbai, our next speaker, Shaiza Jeffrey Manekshaw, who likes her name is also Shez, so I will use Shez. I must say that I have been part of my childhood was spent in India, and India has had a great influence in my life. So Shez comes from Mumbai, and she heads content and training for theater professionals education. She's also the founder of the school library project that has done some amazing online drama workshops for children. She has taught drama for over a decade, working across age groups and socioeconomic backgrounds. Shez has trained with theater practitioners from various parts of India and the globe, and works as a freelance puppeteer, photographer, editor, curator, and graphic designer. Shez, welcome. We are interested to hear what you have to say about arts education, policies, politics in India.
Thank you so much. I actually want to just give the other two speakers a big hand. Thank you for that. It's our big drama clap to you guys for all that you had to say. It's very hard for me to actually talk about India. I mean, Sanja just said that I'm in Mumbai. I'm actually not. I'm in the hills in South India right now because we decided we wanted to get away from being in the city during a pandemic because I have two small children as well. Actually, it's interesting to just listen to what you have to say because you have policies at a national level. India is so big and so diverse, but we have very little at a national level to actually put the arts into education at all. And one of the biggest problems that we also face is a kind of, many parents as well as educators really think that the arts belong at the bottom of a ladder somewhere, right? So very often, most schools don't even have the arts, forget drama. If we're talking about your average school that a middle-class child might go to, you're looking at, 2,500 kids in a class. And they're lucky if they have an art teacher, and that's for painting and drawing only, right? It's very rare to actually have even a drama or a theater department in a school. There's been a shift recently in India because obviously we have a lot more people who are earning more. So we have more of what we call international schools, or your, slightly alternative schools, and they are starting to have, theater departments and drama teachers. But again, there's no guideline on what the training should be for that, right? So we actually have a company called Theatre Professionals Education, and we started out just putting drama teachers into schools to teach. And we would do that. They would go in for every hour and they would teach drama as a subject in schools. But then we found, this is really still, we're being pigeonholed quite a lot, even in a school that is supposed to be progressive. The first thing that would go, our shelf life in a school was about 2 years, maybe 3 years. And then suddenly, somebody at the top of that on the board or the trustees or something would say, do we really need that over here? Do we need drama in our school? And then we would lose our jobs. And our company and the instructors would then, be asked to leave. And this was something that was ongoing. So we started to think, we have a small core team of people who work in education in our company. And we said, how are we going to approach this differently? And we said, okay, the one thing that we have to think of is how do we infiltrate a school so then drama and the arts become part of the scaffolding that everything else can be hung on, right? How do we actually get your regular class teacher to use methods from drama in their classroom, right? So that's something that we started to look at, and we started a teacher training program. And before pandemic hit, that was actually a 2-year program that we would take into schools, and we would work with teachers in schools and do various workshops with them, and then go into class and see how they were implementing this. And we're working with science teachers, maths teachers, your homeroom teacher, and we were just getting them to use methods and exercises through drama and teach their lessons, right? And of course, then pandemic hit and the whole thing had to pivot, and we had to think about how do we take this online? And I don't know what it is for everybody else on my screen, but online learning is terrible, right? I know that kids are just switching their classes off. They're really not engaged. Half the time they're doing something else. And there's no interest in what that teacher is saying at all. So we started to think, okay, what can we do to make these classes more engaging for your everyday teacher? And we came up with a sort of an online certificate course that is designed just for teachers. And how can they be more engaging? And one of the things that we found actually when we started to do this is actually the social and emotional health of your teacher is not wonderful, right? And we know that there are methods in drama that deal directly with people's social and emotional health. So we started to look at how can we help these teachers. And the first workshop that we designed was actually working with their social and emotional health. And then how can they then take those methods to their students and their classes, right? And this is something that we started to really roll out in it. So we have this one certificate, and now we have a second level to that, and where we've got it open so teachers can sign up independently for it. And we also take that to schools. Now, on a national level, we've had very little in India to say that the arts are even important at all, which is crazy because, I come from a culture where we've got everything, right? When we have art and dance and music, and every single state in India has different arts, different kinds of theater, different kinds of puppetry. I work as a puppeteer. There are probably about 500 different kinds of puppetry across the country, but many of them have died, right? And that's just one example, but the same goes for different art forms, different types of dance. But our government does very little. So anything that happens has to happen through the private sector or through NGOs, right? So one of the things that we kind of started looking at is, this last year is our government for the first time introduced something called the National Education Policy. And for the very first time, it starts to talk about the arts and integrating the arts. So I'm just going to share that with you. Let me just bring up my screen. And it's quite interesting to just look at that document because what we did is my colleagues and myself, we went through the document and we pulled out all the things that really mattered to us on it. So I'm just going to present that to you. So if you see, the first one that we pulled out from there talks about promoting inclusivity and equitable quality education in every classroom. And if you go through the points on there, it talks about things like empowering the teacher, building compassion, courage, and resilience, fostering unique capabilities of every child, instilling ethics, and of course, like creating future citizens. Now we know these are all things that drama does for people. So we started to say, okay, how can we now implement this policy through drama? So we're looking at, I'll just show you another thing. The other thing that came out of that policy is they're talking about multidisciplinary learning, which is exactly what our company is looking at. How can we use drama as a vehicle to actually teach across subjects? So that is something that's quite exciting for us to now say. We can actually go into schools and help people implement this. The last one, of course, is helping children learn how to learn. And this is the first one on those that I came across, was this idea of creating joyful classrooms. Now, I don't know if you have ever had the experience, but most classrooms in India, and I'm generalizing here, but many of our classrooms have a teacher that delivers a monologue. And there's very little interaction with their students, with their learners. And there's very little that is student-led, right? Everything is teacher-centric and it's all about listening. It's not about engaging with your learning. So actually to see these on a policy is quite exciting for us to say, okay, we are now moving to a place where we can try and say that, drama helps you do all of these things. So I just wanted to share that with you. But yeah, we're not really, like, all of this is with Indian schools, they're looking at just ticking a box. And they're looking at, oh, we are actually in compliance with the NEP 2020. And they might just call you in for a webinar and say, talk about the arts. And then they say, oh, we've implemented it, So it's not like they want to do it in any kind of depth. And that is our big problem. How do we now approach schools and say, okay, we would like you to do this in a way that is meaningful and approach this policy in a way that is going to, help your school community and really integrate the arts into the very fabric of your school. So that's where we're at a company, and we're trying to do that as much as possible. Of course, even getting a foot in the door into a school is a long process. And we have to, like, once we engage with starting a conversation with a school, it takes us weeks before they decide to say, yes, come on, let's try this, we've worked with now, I think, probably about 50 schools across the country in total, and that's across different kinds of income backgrounds, but the nature of the work has been different. Some of it has been directly with students and some of it has been with teachers as well. So we're trying to keep that going. And now we're just hopeful that, more schools will be able to, say, yes, this is something that we need and something that we need to do. Because unfortunately, there is no space for the arts in most of the schools across the country. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about this school library project that Sanja mentioned. And that's something we started as a free platform on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And I'm just going to do another screen share for you. Hang on. And that's something that we did as a company, just the people that work with me. We run it for free. and it just works across subjects. So all the different arts and different subjects are included, and we put up a free video every day. And the idea is that still in India, most kids are sitting at home. You know, very few children have actually gone back to school, and if they have, they're mostly above high school level, you know, and secondary school children. So your primary school children and your pre-primary children are still at home. So we found that we wanted to do something that really reaches people during these times. And so this is what we started. And it's just a place like a library where, you know, you can come and find things on different subjects. And that's just a little bit about that. So India, of course, is very diverse and we have different languages. So we decided, okay, we have to also try and incorporate different languages so it's inclusive as well. And one of the things the School Library Project did was a play, and it's called When Ali Became Bajrang Bali. And it's a play that we did on Zoom. And we decided to do something where it's all about a little Muslim monkey that decides to become the god Hanuman, which is a Hindu god, and he saves his banyan tree and all his friends on it. And actually we actually had to edit it beforehand and then make it look like it was live on Zoom, because we had so many problems with internet connectivity and things like this, but we managed to do it. And one of the exciting things that came out of that, if I just go to the next slide, is this show over here, which we partnered with an NGO called Slam Out Loud. And if you can see on your screen, there's a little girl in a burqa called Nuzat, and underneath her is a little boy called Om. And one of the things that happened with us when we were trying to get this play out to schools, because first we offered it to schools, a lot of schools would say, oh, but it's, you know, it's a sensitive topic. And, you know, you've got something that's dealing with Hindu and Muslim characters, and the name itself can be quite sensitive. And so we said, no, you know, it's nothing like that. And the main like message of the story is about how this little monkey saves this tree that is, you know, diverse and full of different animals. And then we did this play through an NGO, and it was amazing how they reacted to it, because many of these kids had never even seen theater in their lives. Before pandemic, they'd never even seen a show live. So it was like their first time seeing something, and it was wonderful how they just, you know, took it all in, and they had so many questions. And that's something that we want to continue to do, is just take things out. So this is from the lady that runs the NGO. She sent us a message, and she said it was so much fun and enriching. And for the children, it was the first theater show that they saw physically or virtually. So that was just something I wanted to share with all of you. And that's us. So this is the sort of work that we've been doing. Like I said, we don't unfortunately have the kind of national policies that most places have. So we have to kind of go at it from the private sector and do the best that we can. And we're just hoping that now that we do have a policy that talks about integrating the arts, that we are somewhere to really stand on our legs and try and make a difference now. So that's where we're at. Okay, thanks, Sanja.
Thank you, Shez. Thank you also for sharing those delightful images in the end. It was really important also to see the work itself, even though it's online work. And as you said, it's really hard to do any kind of online teaching. I think many things that you said resonate for all of us, but I'm thinking of a few points. First, I really like what you said about integrating arts as the fabric, into the fabric of the school, as the essence of the school where other things can happen. Also, I think it's a very important point about what you said about the social emotional health of the teachers, because what we also have to stress in our advocacy plans is it is not only beneficial for pupils, but also the teachers who are maybe teaching other subjects, but are using drama methodology and are using art in their work. It is something that enriches them, and it really helps them to develop as teachers in any subject that they do. I like also your idea of the holistic approach. And I must say creating a joyful classroom, I think, is one of the main things. We have to make learning, we have to make the school environment something joyful, a place where children really want to go, want to come to. And this is, we can do it, we can achieve it through art, I think. Thank you, Shez, so much.
Thank you so much.
And I want to say thank you so much to all speakers, because we have been really well considering time. Now we travel to a country I have never been, the Philippines. So this is in my, they say, bucket list. I have put all the countries that I want to visit one day. And I'm very, very happy to introduce Beng Cabangon. She is the executive director of the Philippine Educational Theater Association, PETA, that has been for many years the valuable member of IDEA, of our international organization. So she has been the executive director since 1993. She has led the establishment of the PETA Theater Center, a dynamic hub for the arts in the Philippines and Asia. An artist teacher and specialist in teachers training for theater drama education and arts management. She has conducted workshops on the use of creative pedagogy for education and advocacy, designing numerous programs, conferences, and written journals on culture and arts. She also held key positions in various networks, such as the International Drama Theater Education Association, our association, the Conference of Asian Foundations and Organizations, the National Commission for Culture and Arts, Committee on Dramatic Art, Phil Stage, to name a few. Beng is a University of the Philippines graduate of Bachelor of Arts in Economics and Master in Education Curriculum Studies. Welcome, Beng. We are looking forward to hearing about the subject and your view from the Manila.
Thank you, Sanja. Good afternoon, good morning to everybody. So as Sanja said, she has not been to the Philippines. If I'm not mistaken, I think of the people I see on screen, I think it's really Robin and Maria who have been to the Philippines. So let me begin by briefly introducing to you the Philippines, so that also provides a context as I explain our work in drama theater education. So we're located in Southeast Asia. We're a developing nation with a population of about 109 million people. So we have a lot of people here. Of course, nothing compared to India. We're a culturally diverse nation with about 120 to 170 languages, and we're predominantly Christians, and 90% Christians and 5% Muslims. We have a young population. About 40% of our people are children and youth. Poverty is a major problem, with about 16% of our people living below the national poverty line. And I am very sure that this has worsened due to the lockdown and the pandemic. Very recently, we got this data that we have a negative 9.5% growth rate. That's as a result of the pandemic and how we handled the pandemic issue. Our Philippine education system is very much patterned after the American system. Prior to 2013, we've had 10 years of basic education, but now we have what we refer to as the K-12 program. So it's 1 year of kinder, 6 years of elementary, 4 years of junior high school, and 2 years of senior high school before they move to tertiary education. We have a very high education participation rate. As of the school year 2019-2020, so before the pandemic, we have 27.7 young people enrolled in the K-12, 81% in public schools and 15% in private schools. And we have about 1.1 million teachers. 800,000 of them are teaching in public schools and 300,000 in private schools. So I leave it to you to do the math in terms of ratio of how many teachers are teaching X number of kids. And of course, it's very evident that teachers have more students in the public schools per classroom as compared to those in the private schools. Public education is free, but even if we have a high enrollment rate, we also have a problem of children and young people dropping out of school. No? So 3.8 million, or 1 in every 10 children, are not in school. And for those who are in school, 8% of them will never really reach beyond grade 6. And those who are able to go to grade 7 up, 18% of them will not reach senior high school. So we have about 36.7% of our young people who are considered out of school, children and youth, and majority of them are female or girls as compared to the boys. The enrollment number, to my assumption, has also declined, brought about by the pandemic. Okay, so when we look at the Philippine education curriculum, let us locate where is theater drama education in the curriculum. First, like some of the previous speakers, theater or drama is not a distinct subject in the K-12 Philippine basic education curriculum. Art is, visual art is, music is, but not theater or drama. But having said that, when you further examine the curriculum, there is a growing role and recognition of theater in the curriculum, particularly when you look at the secondary school level curriculum. And where are they? Theater and performance is seen as a synthesis for art and music. That is included in the curriculum guide for art and music. So if you look here, when they go to the 4th quarter, the focus would be Philippine theatrical forms. For grade 8, it's traditional Asian theater. For grade 9, it's opera and classical theater. And for grade 10, it's musical play and multimedia plays. But even if I say that there is that in the 4th quarter of each and every music and art curriculum, when you actually calculate for the time allocated for that, the total time for the 4th quarter to discuss and perform any of these forms is like 14 hours total for one grading period. No? So it's very, very limited time to execute this program. When you go to senior high school, contemporary arts is one of the subjects in the core curriculum for all senior high school. And letters A, B, C, and D are the content of contemporary arts for grades 11 and 12. And again, it would have a strong emphasis on performance practices, performance practices of theater. Third, in the senior high school program, there are currently 4 career tracks, and one of them is arts and design. In the arts track, performing arts, that's theater, dance, music, is one of the specialized fields of the arts track in senior high school. And this is because there is a recognition of the growing strength of the country's creative industry. Within the K-12 curriculum, of course, there is the study of drama. That is also covered in English, in the study of English and the Filipino subject. And by drama here, it's really looking into dramatic literature, looking at poems, plays, and the study of rhetorics and drama structure through the study of various dramatic literatures. But the lessons on the learning and acquiring of fluency in English or Filipino also includes performing or interpreting drama. In the Philippines, the Department of Education piloted a program called the Special Program in the Arts. So in the beginning, we have 16 regions. Now we're divided into 16 regions. And in each region, they have appointed a public school that would have a special program in the arts for secondary schools. And this is really meant to provide special attention to students who have demonstrated talent or potential in creative writing, visual arts, theater arts, music, media arts, and dance. And the way their program is designed is like 50% of their time in school is devoted to learning the academic subjects, the regular subjects, and they have 50% of the time devoted to learning the particular arts that they are enrolled in. Currently, I think we have about 400 plus SPAs nationwide. So this is also one arena by which you see a good, an opportunity for theater and drama education to take place. For the theater program, the emphasis on is on the development of performance skills using spoken text in a number of styles and genres. No? And then where else can you find drama theater education? Of course, it can also be found in majority of secondary schools as an extracurricular or co-curricular activity. So there are numerous high school drama clubs all over the country. And theater and drama methodologies are also being utilized by teachers as an approach to teaching correction, both in primary and in secondary schools. So while my presentation would look like that it's a rosy picture, it's not entirely that. I must admit that yes, indeed, as a written document and as being practiced, there are a lot of opportunities, but not without challenges as well. No. First of all, many of you were mentioning earlier that it is also different from what is written on paper and what is also happening actually on the ground. And to the government, I think really the challenge is how to effectively implement the curriculum and strengthen the practice of drama theater education in schools, ensuring its quality, that it is culturally grounded and socially grounded, and that it is indeed an empowering experience for young people. Okay, so how do you translate everything that is written, all the lofty objectives written, all those beautiful learning outcomes articulated in the curriculum? How do you really make that happen? Now, when you operationalize it in a huge infrastructure or bureaucracy, such as the school system in the Philippines with 27 million children and young people. What am I talking about? First, there is really a very, very big need for teacher training and specialization, because the truth of the matter is this is the curriculum, but I would probably say more than 90% of the teachers doing and teaching art and music education, and for that matter, theater and drama education, are not really trained in those fields. When we did this, I did a study before, but this was like 8 years ago, and I interviewed 100 teachers teaching music, arts, physical education, and that, for that matter, also handling the theater and drama education. It's like 95% of them were trained in physical education, 2 were trained in music education, and 3 in arts education. So you could imagine how all these teachers are grappling with how they will implement art, music, and drama education in their respective classes. Second, we're a poor nation. We have very limited resources, and budgeting for the Department of Education, for the education program, is always limited. So resources is a serious problem as far as the education program of our country is concerned. So I'm talking about funds, budget, facilities, reference materials, and learning materials that teachers and students can use. Third, there is also very limited engagement between the schools and the theater arts sector. In the country, there abounds quite a number of theater artists and theater organizations who are very much willing to work with the education sector. But between the limitation of time and limitation of resources, this possible resource that schools can tap is still very limited at the moment. Within the school itself, there is also a problem of interdepartmental coordination within the schools. No? So instead of, let's say, social studies, history, music, arts, PE, English, Filipino working together so that they don't have to keep on repeating the content of particular subjects, and for instance, could further be enhanced so that really it's more of an integrated approach to teaching the students rather than looking at it on a per subject approach. When you look at our current curriculum, one of the intentions of transforming our curriculum from a 10-year program to a 12-year program is also to decongest the curriculum. But I think as far as decongesting the curriculum is concerned, much can still be done, even if it has already been redesigned for a 12-year program. And this part of decongestion would probably allow for deeper and more quality education rather than covering a whole breadth of information and topics, but rather deepening certain portions. And then finally, we also have to look at the context of public schools, wherein you have many teachers who are overworked, even if they are willing to go out of their way and take the extra mile to use more creative approaches in the classroom. But they are just swamped with so many other work. The conditions and the resources are not in place. So all of these limitations, most especially in the public schools, are not in place really for quality education, quality drama, theater, and education to take place. But for now, especially with the pandemic, I think one of the pressing challenges now is how does one do drama, theater, and education under the new normal? How does one do drama, theater, education in the context of a blended learning? Now, right now in the Philippines, we're still not allowed to do face-to-face classes. So a lot of classes are held via online, and of course, there's that's the synchronous, and a lot of efforts are also done in an asynchronous manner. But the reality of our country is that 60% of Filipino families do not have access to the internet. And the students simply rely on modules. These are written modules, which they have to get from their respective local government offices or their schools. And the kids are just studying those documents, and they answer questions from those documents. So parents play a big role. So how does one do drama and education in that context? And there is also low penetration to high-speed broadband connectivity in the country. So even if those who can access online, their internet connection is so unstable. So this is a very big challenge to education in general, and also to theater, drama, and education in particular. So for PETA, so for everybody, PETA, we are an association of what we call artist teachers. We're based in Manila. And basically we do theater productions, and we do a lot of training activities, and theater, drama, education is one major thrust of our organization. So how do we keep on engaging young people and teachers in the schools? What strategies do we do? First, prior to the pandemic, we do a lot of quite a number of teacher training, which we entitle Creativity in the Classroom. And the target of this teacher training are not limited to teachers who are doing arts education, but also to include teachers who teach science, math, and other subjects. And really the whole objective is how they can use creative approaches, a big part of the theater and drama in particular, so that it can be more engaging and empowering, and can facilitate greater participation and critical thinking amongst the students. Second, we also do direct youth theater training in the schools, either working with the school for either working directly with the SPAs or working with the youth drama clubs in the schools. Of course, the limitation of this is no matter how much youth theater training you do, you cannot really cover the entire country, no? But we do our best as far as we can reach out to. Third, every chance we get that we are consulted for further curriculum development and enhancement by the various SPAs, particularly for their theater program, we provide that assistance as well. And fourth, as a performing company, we also come up with curriculum, what we call curriculum-based productions that can be used to supplement, or can be used by schools as a supplementary activity for the young people. Furthermore, we also engage the schools in what we refer to as advocacy programs for particular social issues, for instance. No? So, for example, mental health is a major concern in schools, or voters' education is a particular subject that schools would like to tackle, or human rights or environment. There are programs in PETA that uses theater, performances, and workshops so that people, and young people in particular, could further understand and participate in these types of social issues. but all using the arts as an approach. No? So that's also one way by which we're able to engage the schools. And finally, every now and then, we organize what we call youth theater festivals, wherein we encourage the different SPAs and drama clubs and school partners to develop their original productions, and we organize a youth theater festivals for them. But as I said, because many of our young people are not in school, so for us, it is very, very important to continuously engaging young people also beyond the classroom and in the communities. No? So PETA has dedicated programs that caters to community youth theater, working directly in the communities, partnering with civil society organizations. As I said, we're a largely Catholic country, partnering with the church because they organize a lot of youth programs, and at times partnering with local government so that we can provide theater experiences to young people in the communities. And young people can use the theater as a platform so that their voices can be heard in important matters that concerns them in the community. Just like in the schools, we also have creative advocacy programs. So what we do in schools about using the arts to advocate for human rights and environment, children's rights, we also do the same programs in the communities, partnering with different players and organizations in the communities and mobilizing young people to be the key champions and the key players in these creative advocacy programs. So these are just sample pictures of the work that we've been doing in the community. Some of them would be the use of theater and creative approaches to talk about the disaster risk reduction and to talk about psychosocial processing. We've worked very closely with communities that were hit by Typhoon Haiyan in 2013 in Leyte. And then we do a lot of children's theater in communities, working largely with what we call children in marginalized situations. So these are child laborers, these are children in homes, abandoned children, or sexually abused children. And then we also work with those who are very much keen in championing human rights in their particular communities. And then as a result of the pandemic, we also started engaging young people online. I'd like to thank Sanja for uploading our video. And I think if you have the time, please see it. It's on the IDEA Facebook. And we've decided that no pandemic should stop us from doing the kind of work that we're doing. We have to continuously engage our partners, the young people, and our public through online. So first, we've organized what we call the Let's Get Creative workshop series. So these are actually workshops that we've organized online, some for free to the big public, and others are exclusive workshops. And then, so I think very interesting for IDEA would be the workshops that we've organized, not only for young people, but also for teachers. So we've done creative pedagogy for blended learning. That we did that quite a number of those workshops, especially before classes opened here in the Philippines. And then on the photo, you see creative approach to classroom management, etc. Second, we also did what we call storytelling Sundays. So we have quite a number of children's books, and we've converted them. We've asked artists to interpret those stories, and created some visuals for video. And every Sunday, we made that available to the public. And several times, some segments of the Department of Education would call us if they could use that as a learning material also, since they've been teaching, that they can use in online teaching. And then we've also organized what we call Talk Tuesdays. So these are basically webinars. And very recently, from the period of September to December, we organized what we call a Festival of Windows. Robin, you were there in the face-to-face Festival of Windows. So this year, we did a Festival of Windows online, and it featured our young people partners, schools, young people from the communities, and the creative work that they were able to do in the form of spoken word, songs, movement, drama, and visual arts, talking about different issues and concerns that were important to them. So just to conclude, I guess in the experience of PETA, we've realized there are multiple spaces by which we can empower young people through drama theater education. We can do that in schools, and schools are very important because that's where you find the majority of young people. So that is very important. But at the same time, it's also important to engage them in the communities beyond the classrooms. And now it's important to continuously engage them in the digital platform. In the context of the Philippines, so many articles are saying that the way we manage COVID and the way we're managing whatever vaccination program might be possible is not really the best way to do it. So we are not sure how long this period of uncertainty will be. And so we really have to capitalize, despite the digital divide in our country, how we can optimize the digital program to continuously reach out to young people. Second, given our cultural diversity and given the harsh social realities that we're living in, cultural and social grounding are vital in our efforts in drama theater education. Third, drama theater education thrives if support resources and mechanisms are in place. Lofty words are beautiful. Nice objectives are great. Of course, it's important because at least on paper, there is something to start with. But it won't mean much unless the support infrastructure to operationalize it and implement it are also in place. And I think that will be a continuous advocacy within our country. How do we make all these lofty words of using creativity, the arts for the holistic development and lifelong skills and life learning of children be possible? That really has to be translated into something more concrete. And therefore, it is important to provide greater visibility for arts and arts education in policy and budget allocation. When you talk to a lot of those who are in governance here in the country, they say a policy is nothing unless it's translated in budget. So I think that would also be an area for advocacy in our country. And then because many of us have moved on also to digital, I think new models of doing drama theater and education under the new normal should be documented, studied, and developed. And perhaps this is something also that IDEA could share with each other, because I think there's a lot to study about digital education and doing theater, drama, and education in that kind of platform. And finally, at least for the Philippines, the issue of mental health is a growing concern among young people. And I think it would be great to strengthen also how drama theater and education can help address the mental health issues, especially among the youth. And I support what our colleague from India has also said, also for the teachers. I understand that doing digital teaching really is so stressful for teachers. My colleagues and friends who are in the education sector have lost a lot of weight after doing like 5 months of teaching online. And I think mental wellness of everybody, especially teachers and the young people, there is much there also that drama, theater, and education can do. And yeah, so just to end my sharing, I just got it from the artsparty.org.uk. Again, just reiterating, regardless of amidst all the challenges that we're facing now, globally and country specific, I think there is no doubt about the value of why the arts matter for children and for everybody. And we should continuously champion for the arts, so that not only because we needed to develop artists, but more importantly, because we really need it as to survive and grow up as decent human beings. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Beng, for a very, very diverse and complex presentation. You have touched so many things. Also, for me, it's a wonderful learning experience as the newly elected president of IDEA to get to know the members of IDEA, to get to know so directly your work. And the reason why I uploaded so quickly to the Facebook page of IDEA your video was because it was such a positive example of how, even though we have this incredible and hard situation that we are encountering all around the world, you have succeeded in doing so much. And it is full of joyful images and a lot of optimism, if I can say. I can say one of the things that is really interesting, and as Robin Pascoe in the chat has commented, it is something that is coming through all of these presentations, and this is the congested curriculum. It is not only, so I think there are reforms that are happening all around the world, and the thing is that this is a problem, this is a situation where we could take things in our advantage and really push in this transformation of curriculums, push the art education as one of the most important factors. You know, also, as you say, for the mental health, for the stability, inner stability of all pupils and the students and teachers. And thank you so much for all the recommendations that you have given for IDEA, you know, where we can go on, because we really plan to have a series of webinars. We are making working groups inside of IDEA that are planning new webinars that will continue now in the next months. What I would really like now, first of all, because we are in a good place, perhaps for this, to introduce one more member of our team. Beside Joachim Reiss, myself and Jugoslav, we have Colleen Roche, and she's our colleague from Australia and our new Director of Communications. She has a very special role on this webinar, and she's the reporter. So she's the one that is very closely following all your presentations and making a kind of a summary. So I asked her to be kind enough to put her email in the chat window so that you can actually send your presentation PowerPoints to her, because I think it would be really useful, even though we have recorded this, but I think it would be also useful for her. I think we can also now in this moment present what is waiting for us. So every month we will have a different region. On the 20th of February, we will have the Americas. Then the next session in April will be dedicated to Europe and the Middle East. And then in May, as a conclusion, we will have a kind of a summary where all the reporters will present, and we will hear a summary of the actually world mapping on where do we stand, considering policies and politics and advocacy on drama and theater education. So this was like a little interlude for the next part of our webinar. I would now ask Joachim Reiss to look at the questions that appeared in the chat, and that he can read it and present it to the speakers so that you can answer. Also, as Maria van Bakkelen suggested, it would be maybe nice to write your country, but maybe you can do it where it's your name on the participants list. On the side, you have an option, you know, to rename your, so you can put your country, country where you come from in this part, or you can write it in the chat also. Write your name, if you like, your contact, so that other people can reach you, and your country. So Joachim, the microphone is yours.
Yeah, thank you all for your presentations. A little overwhelming, really great. Thank you so much. I think it's not only me who has to reread your presentations to really understand everything. There was one concrete question from Maria to Shez. How is the access for young people outside the formal education system? For instance, popular theater, workshops in cultural centers, etc. Perhaps you can just answer this, and then I will make a proposal for a small time we have for discussion.
Okay, no, just there's not much outside of a big city. So for example, Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, Chennai, these are the cities, or Hyderabad even, and Kolkata will have places that are cultural centers. But again, it's limited to people who have money and have access, right? You have, I mean, Beng also touched on the idea of the digital divide. Well, we have also, there's definitely a monetary divide that exists. So there's a lot of people that don't have access, but there are definitely NGOs and private companies like our own that are trying to bridge that and get out there and do things in different ways. I have a friend, for example, that does something called cycle yogna, where he goes out to villages on a bicycle and he just does shows in the middle of the village. You know, he'll set up, and it's for children. I have another friend that tours with a bus and through Kerala, and he will, again, you know, this is of course pre-pandemic times, but these are people who will just go out there and try to do things by themselves. But we don't have any kind of like formal spaces in a lot of, you know, towns and villages. Right now I'm living in the hills, and there's no formal like a cultural center over here that people can go to, unless I do something in somebody's home, or I just set up, you know, in the middle of the town somewhere and do something, and I have to get permissions to do that, which is not so easy. But we try. I mean, everybody will try their little bit, and that's just where we're at right now.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, please, but short, sorry.
Joachim. Yeah, I think your two examples of your friend with a cycle or with a bus, I think your country is so vast, and I think there are very many initiatives like that, and it would be, well, the problem is mapping it to find it and to make it on a kind of platform. It's the same problem in Europe, but specifically in your very vast country, it is mapping is a problem. So we need to think, not now per se, but idea how to find ways to map it, even if it's only 10 from your big country, then it helps already. And others would say, oh, but I know also, etc. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for this proposal. And these are challenges for a further working group and further work and idea to have this forum of exchange. I would, looking to the time, we have 20 minutes. So I think I thought first we should concentrate perhaps some minutes on what Robin proposed, to discuss about the actual situation, what drama in pandemic times, but we can only decide to have this one or another discussion about strategies in general, because we all hope that pandemic will end and we will meet together, and people and students can learn together in a classroom and play and these things. So it's only for a time, and it's for improving our methods and for making them bigger. So I'm not sure. I propose now, just Sanja, please help me. I would propose to focus on that topic for the moment, for this webinar. Yeah, as it is just, we are all engaged with these questions. What are we? How can we come through the pandemic, and leave out the other more political, strategic questions, which will be more important for the future, but perhaps we have more time later in another.
What I would suggest, and you know, I really like our webinar that it is a comfortable number of people, you know, it is not too big. And I think because Maria proposed that we have the names of the countries, what I would really like, because we have only a quarter of an hour left, if everyone, so your task is to call out a name of a person who is there. So go to gallery view so that you can see all the little squares, call out a name, and this person should say their name, their country, and also in one sentence, give us what is their strongest impression from this webinar. What is something that they will take with them, you know, as maybe a strategy or something they heard that is inspiring for them. But please be short, because there's quite a lot of us, so that we are presenting ourselves, you know, we are not too many of us. So for example, I will now call Ausa from Iceland. Please turn on your microphone. It is not, you have to turn it off, on the microphone. Yes.
What I take from this webinar, it was really inspiring, because I don't know so much about the companies in Asia and all there around. I was just ears, as you can see, and I was just writing and writing down, and I'm probably just gonna contact you and ask about things and so on. And I was just inspired about this. I'm very pleased.
So say your country and choose another person.
To another person.
Yes, but choose. You're from. I already said you're from Iceland. It's important to hear from which countries.
Yeah, I am from Iceland, and I want to use the opportunity to tell you about the big congress worldwide in Iceland next year, 2022. Of course, you all come. It's from 4 to 8 of July. And I give the word to Adriana from Holland, from Netherlands.
Yes, I am Adriana Nichting from the Netherlands. And I agree with Asa that it's very inspiring. But it's also good to have an update from every country now, especially with the pandemic, because it influenced in the Netherlands the education a lot, and we have the means and the possibilities but also in our country the differences between poor and rich are pronounced now because some children don't have access to the internet, and we are a rich country, and there are lots of support from the government, etc., in money and in other things. But now that's good to hear that worldwide it's a problem, and how do we deal with it? And next to how do we put drama on the agenda, but that's an ongoing goal, and so nice. So Maria van Bakelen, the next one.
Thank you. Can I please ask people just to be a little shorter because we don't
have
too much
okay.
time. Thank you, Adriana. Maria, please, microphone. No, we don't. Yes.
No. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Adriana. Now I'll be very short. I just put a question via the chat. I'm Maria van Bakelen. I work half a year in France and work half a year in the Netherlands. And that's it for the moment, because I'm not from Asia. So I will be very short. But the question I put in the chat to everybody is addressed to Beng, because I remember, Beng, that you had a very beautiful congress or symposium or festival like years ago about women, and that was, I think it was done with the South Asian Network, or I don't know what. So can you refresh my memory? And is this still an active South Asian network which is linked to arts? And
very short reply, Sanja. Yes. I could see you, Sanja. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
The network is not existing anymore, but the members of the network are still existing, and they're still practicing and doing and creating theater in their respective countries in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, and can you mention the countries? Because I think there were a lot which we don't, as IDEA, have not very much contact with.
So the ones that we are in contact with now would be Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Malaysia, and some in Indonesia, of course, Singapore, Hong Kong. Very quickly.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Maria, who is next? Who would you like to call out?
Jovana.
Okay, hello everyone. Do you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so my name is Jovana. I'm from Serbia, like Sanja, and this is my first time here with you. So I'm an assistant professor at the university level. I teach university students, teach drama and theater. And the things, it was very helpful and inspiring to listen to all of you and to hear everything you have to say from different, very different contexts, countries, and so on. I think the most important thing for me was that that there's no arts education at university level. Okay, so we are talking about primary, secondary school, and so on. And there's no arts education at university level. And especially now, when with all the challenges of online teaching, so especially I like the idea of that joyful classroom, because like all my lessons are online now, and it's been so depressing for me for like 2 months with a bunch of students not responding, not being engaged, and so on. So I think those are the things that's I don't know, I found interesting, helpful, and so on from your presentations, and thank you all, really.
So can you call the next?
Yes. Okay, Susan.
Hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I've been listening with interest to everything that's been said. I have a question. I'm hoping that someone is going to draw together all the threads that are here, and particularly look at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and so on that this wonderful breadth of material presents for IDEA to then move forward in the way that it wants to, and particularly to approach international organizations and say, this is a snapshot. This is where we are at with the best will in the world. And we believe as drama educators that we can actually address many of the pressing things that are coming at us to do with well-being, to do with mental health of all students throughout the world, and that we have the means to communicate this through IDEA across the board, the programs that we're working, so that we can share that effectively. That is why we deserve as an organization to be funded, fully funded, and we're in a situation now where we can do that.
Thank you, Susan.
Given the money, and be sure of it. Joachim is in charge.
Great. Who is the next? Can you please choose? Of course, not the speakers or us.
Next person I will choose is Arnold.
Yeah.
Is he? Yeah. Greetings, Arnold.
Okay. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I'm very glad to assist these presentations, and then to know more about Asia and their way of teaching drama and art. And then it is a great opportunity for me to learn more and then to have this in practice in my country, because here we don't have opportunity to have drama and art at school, drama education at school. So just from the elders who learn it, used to transmit it to us. So the reason why I have a project in the local school to do more and transmit this education and art. So I'm very, very glad to have the examples from other countries, and then this will help me to do more in my country.
Thank you,
so
Arnold.
I would like,
Yes.
yeah.
Who is the next?
Okay, let me do, okay. Now, Mr. Robin. Good?
Yes. Robin?
Okay. Yeah.
Can you turn on your microphone? We can't hear you.
Yes, I am. Thank you, everyone. A really interesting conversation from lots of different perspectives. One of the threads that I want to pick up on and think about has to do with the certificate or the provision of training and courses for teachers, and the provision of certification of those courses, because it's a really interesting trend that I've been observing when I look at what CDA have been doing in Turkey, and also some of the other things that are happening at the moment through IDEC in China, where in fact, not just because of the pandemic, but accentuated by the pandemic, we are getting more and more efforts at bringing more people into the drama education world through the provision of online courses and certification of courses. So I'd be interested in people's thinking about that. And I am going to go to Salil.
Microphone, yes.
Thank you. Do you hear me?
Where are you from?
I'm from Bangladesh, neighbor country of India. I'm Sholil Madundar. I working at a international NGO named BRAG as a security specialist of popular theater. And personally, I practice theater I working with Roof Theater, working with Roof Theater. That is for only for educated people, and it stays maximum cities, towns, residential buildings, roof, and you know that. Working three production on buildings roof, basically residential building, where educational people or family members are live there.
Salil, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you please say in one sentence what will you take from this webinar? Because we have very little time, and then choose the
Okay. The subject of this webinar is amazing, and I glad and to hear many different countries and their practice and their forward plans. Extremely, this seminar, this webinar subject is so amazing. Thanks.
Thank you. So which is the next person you want to choose?
Okay, Monica.
Monica, are you there? Okay. So while we wait for Monica, maybe we can hear Fredil from the Philippines.
Hi, I'm Fredil. I'm also a member of PETA, Philippine Educational Theater Association. My takeaway for this webinar, I think it's about time, I feel, no? It's just a personal reflection, that we need to organize drama educators in the Philippines. you know, to give it a voice and the policy in terms of affecting policies, etc., and all those things mentioned by Beng. Right now, we have a National Alliance of Cultural Educators in the Philippines, because we have a Philippine Cultural Education Program, you know, working under the broader category of culture, which is also a good discipline. But I think it's also a nice thing to have drama educators organization. Before we had that in PETA, years ago, we organized moderators of youth groups in schools as well as in community theaters. Yeah, just my sentiment. I think there's a possibility of doing it. You know, that's all.
Thank you. And Erica, if she's there, we would like to hear. What would you like to take from Argentina?
Hello.
It must be night in Argentina, isn't it? What is the time?
Yes, no, I'm not in Argentina, I'm in Austria because my parents live here for the last 6 months. And I was also in Switzerland 4 months because schools were closed in Argentina and we work online. So it's one of the things I take is that, so we are in so different countries and continents, there are challenges, very similar challenges about teaching online and the percentage of children outside this kind of education. So this is something I think is a big challenge. And also, well, about, I thought it was very inspiring because I also affirm that school has to be a joyful place, and seeing that the dropout is mostly in secondary, I think that primary and elementary school is very important. And also that children get this idea of arts there, so they can choose later. And yes, and I think also that about the health and mental health for children, for teachers, and also for arts teachers, because for us it is a subject in Argentina, theater. And now we are coming back to school mid-February, 2 weeks before usually in the city, and in March in the province of Buenos Aires, where I live in the city of Buenos Aires usually. And it's quite complicated because the cases are starting to get up, and autumn is in March coming. And so I will speak about that in the next conference, but that's the concern. And thank you all for your experiences. They are also very inspiring to take notice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erica. You gave us a very good introduction to our next webinar, because you will be one of the speakers. It will happen on the 20th of February, and it will be dedicated to the Americas, North America, South America, and Central America. I just want to thank you all for this really inspiring session. I think we have all learned so much and are inspired for next steps. We are so happy to have Colleen with us. Colleen, can you wave a little bit? So she was very carefully, as you said, putting the threads together, and she will prepare her report for the last webinar that will happen in May. So we are collecting all these stories. We are mapping the world. It is a huge, beautiful world we live in. So we should hear all the voices. Joachim, would you like to add something for the end?
No, thank you very much. Everything is said, what could be said in this short time. And I hope for more feedback via email or chat or whatever, so we can collect more information and strategies in policy. That's what I will ask later.
Okay.
And see you in one of the other webinars we are organizing.
Yes. I just want to read from Monica a short sentence, because she had some problem with her mic. She said it was very interesting to hear from people from these countries. And oh, I missed it now, but you can read it in the chat. She's really inspired with what you said. Okay, so goodbye. See you. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. And bye.
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 Thank you so much. Bye.
Goodbye.